Your palms are bleeding. The skin on your hands is raw, burning, and covered in a thin, cold layer of sweat and dust. Your shoulders are screaming for relief. Every muscle fiber in your upper body is begging you to drop your arms. But you cannot stop. If you stop, you vanish. Let us step into a room frozen in time. A local political conference in a deeply authoritarian regime has just concluded with a brief, standard tribute to the supreme leader. The crowd stands to applaud. 1 minute passes. The applause is warm, filled with the expected energy of loyal subjects. 3 minutes pass. The applause is polite, though a quiet strain begins to ripple through the room. 5 minutes pass. Now, the temperature in the room shifts. The warm applause has mutated into something horrifying. It is no longer a gesture of respect. It is transformed into a literal apparatus of survival. Look closely at the faces in the crowd. Look past the wide, rigid, painted-on smiles. Behind the eyes of these men and women, there is no loyalty. There is only pure, cold, unadulterated terror. Everyone in this room is playing a deadly, silent game of chicken. Who will be the first to break? Who possesses the suicidal courage to lower their hands first? To do so is to identify yourself as the dissident. To do so is to sign your own warrant. 9 minutes, 10 minutes. The local factory director's arms are completely numb, heavy as lead. His heart is hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. In this agonizing stretch of time, he realizes a chilling truth. In a broken, tyrannical system, performative adoration is the only currency that buys you tomorrow. To show anything less than exhausting, fanatical devotion is a death sentence. At the 11-minute mark, the factory director finally stops. He sinks heavily into his wooden chair, his body collapsing under the weight of sheer exhaustion. Instantly, like a dam breaking, the rest of the terrified crowd stops clapping and collapses into their seats. The performance is over. But the system never forgets, and the apparatus never sleeps. That very night, the director was arrested. He was dragged from his bed, thrown into a cold cell, and handed a 10-year sentence in a forced labor camp. His interrogator didn't ask about his politics. He didn't ask about his productivity. He simply leaned in, casting a long shadow over the metal desk, and left him with a single, chilling piece of advice.
Never be the first one to stop clapping.
Why did a regime that ruled over millions, an apparatus with total military and institutional control, require 11 minutes of forced, agonizing applause from a room of exhausted workers? Because weak systems are desperately, pathologically obsessed with performance. A healthy, functional system doesn't need you to scream its praises to prove it exists. A healthy relationship doesn't demand constant, public, performative reassurance to keep from collapsing. But an abusive, broken apparatus knows, at its core, that it is illegitimate. It knows it has no real soul, no organic foundation of consent. And because it cannot earn your genuine, unforced respect, it settles for the next best thing: extorted adoration. To a tyrant, or to any toxic system, true silence is terrifying. Silence is where independent thought lives. Silence is the dark soil where rebellion brews. Therefore, the system must fill every single second of your existence with noise. It demands that you constantly perform your loyalty, not because it actually believes you love it, but because the act of performing exhausts you. This is a calculated psychological drain. An exhausted human being has no cognitive reserves left to question the absurdity of the performance. When all of your life force is spent just keeping your hands moving, you do not have the bandwidth to look around. Look at the walls and realize the entire room is a cage. This is the pathology of the insecure king. He forces you to clap until your hands bleed, not to prove his strength, but to mask his fragile, consuming fear that if the noise ever stops, the illusion will shatter, and he will be exposed as nothing but a shadow. It is incredibly easy to look back at the dark chapters of history and feel a sense of smug superiority. We sit in our modern spaces, looking through the glass of time, and tell ourselves we are free. We tell ourselves we would never stand in a room clapping for 11 minutes just to survive. But look closer at the world around you today. The clapping never stopped. The system just upgraded the apparatus. Look at our modern corporate landscapes. Look at the performative circus of professional social media networks, where workers must draft emotional, public essays praising the very corporate machinery that would replace them in a heartbeat if a quarterly projection dipped. Look at the forced, hollow enthusiasm of corporate retreats, the mandatory smile requirements of customer-facing roles, and the endless barrage of hustle culture slogans telling you that your worth as a human is entirely tied to your output. We have built a highly sophisticated, transactional slaughterhouse. In this modern apparatus, you are not viewed as an irreplaceable soul. You are a biological robot, a resource to be mined, a metric to be optimized, a unit of production to be discarded when your efficiency drops. And just like the workers of the past, we are forced to participate in the performance of loving this setup. We swipe endlessly on transactional dating platforms where human connection is treated like a commodity market, a game of digital cataloging. Men are told that their sole human value lies in their bank accounts, their utility, and what they can materially provide. Women are reduced to aesthetic data points on a screen. If you refuse to participate in this transactional game, you are socially exiled. If you do not post the highlight reel of your life, if you do not perform your happiness, if you do not pretend to love the grind, the modern system looks at you and labels you defective. You are still in that cold hall. You are just clapping on a touchscreen now. In the sociology of human structures, there's a beautiful, striking contrast. Consider the mechanics of a truly secure social structure. In a healthy, functional framework, whether it is a stable community, a genuine partnership, or a relationship built on mutual trust, you will almost never see theatrical displays of forced allegiance. There is no need for mandatory oaths, no demand for loud, public proclamations of devotion, and no constant testing of loyalty. Why? Because functional systems do not require performance. When a structure actually works, when it treats its individuals with dignity, protects their intrinsic value, and provides genuine, unconditioned safety, it doesn't need to extort applause. The respect is quiet. It is woven directly into the very fabric of daily life. It is lived, not performed. It is only when a system is fundamentally failing, when it is actively strip-mining the humanity out of its people, that it begins to demand loud, theatrical declarations of love. The louder, the noisier, and the more aggressive a structure is about demanding your loyalty, the more broken and illegitimate its foundation usually is. When a relationship is built on genuine, unconditional love, it exists in the quiet, unvarnished moments. It is a quiet sanctuary. But when a relationship is toxic, highly transactional, and fragile, it requires constant public displays, expensive performative gestures, and public validation to hide the hollow rot festering inside. True value does not need a price tag, and true loyalty does not need a stage. So, how do we escape the architecture of forced love? How do we step out of the assembly hall? It starts by recognizing that your value as a human being is entirely non-transactional. You do not exist to be a high-yielding asset for a corporation. You do not exist to be a financial security blanket or an aesthetic status symbol for someone else. Your soul has an intrinsic, unquantifiable value that cannot be measured by a bank statement, a performance review, or a social media algorithm. Think of the classic psychological studies of isolation, where living creatures chose starvation just to cling to a soft, warm, non-functional surrogate rather than a cold, metallic feeder that offered only cold utility. We are wired, at our deepest biological and spiritual level, to seek warmth, not transactions. The modern world wants to turn you into a cold wire machine. It wants to tell you that if you do not provide utility, you do not deserve comfort. It is a lie designed to keep you standing, keep you exhausting your spirit, and keep you clapping. Stop performing. Stop exhausting your spirit trying to prove your worth to systems and people who view you as nothing more than a resource to be consumed. The next time the system demands that you join the standing ovation, the next time you are told that you are only worth what you can produce, remember the factory director. Remember the exhausting, bleeding agony of the forced applause. Have the courage to lower your hands. Have the courage to be the first to sit down. Reclaim your soul. Because your life is too short, and your soul is too beautiful to spend it clapping for a tyrant.